Hi there, my name is Steve Hart. I'm going to share with you something that may be a challenge for you, a shift of your consciousness on the topic of, does a woman need a man? I recently posted that on Facebook, and I got some interesting comments, and this came up in our discussion recently at one of my what I call coffee talks. I'm a host for 3 different groups here on the central east side of Florida, and we meet weekly on the topic of spiritual awakening and self-discovery. And naturally this came up in our conversation: does a woman need a man? Or does a man need a woman? But I'm going to basically address this to the women, since I'm a man, and I'm going to share with you some of my insights. I'm not an expert in this area, but I've had some experience, and I'm also hearing some things from Spirit, and that's as we're going through this shift in consciousness. Now, do you need a partner? Do you need a man? Technically, no, you do not. Now, I understand that over the thousands of years, people have had relationships just for the sake of survival. And even today, there are a lot of people out there who have a family or have jobs that cannot provide for their family with the amount of money they're making, so they end up having a partner just so they can survive. And it's not the partner is somebody to lean on, someone to depend upon for protection, for the handyman around the house type thing, for just for sexual gratification, and whatever it may be. The point is, you have to ask yourself, why do I feel like I need that partner? I want to shift this into a new way of thinking. So, it all begins by asking yourself the question, am I being motivated by fear, or if I'm motivated by love? Because when we're motivated by love, everything's going to grow and blossom, and there's going to be a fulfillment. But when we are motivated by fear, which most often we are, then you're going to find that we end up suffering and frustrated, and we struggle, and relationships are not what we want them to be. And there's been a shift in consciousness, in the collective consciousness. The women of today are beginning to realize they really don't need a man, which is good. And nor does a man really need a woman. But the point is it's a shift in consciousness. Now, I want to bring everything into balance here. The reason why this is happening is because we're coming into a new awareness of who we are. So we're not just a man and a woman, we are spirit beings living in physical form. And that spirit being is given to us by the divine power of the source of all things. And I'm speaking to you women, you're coming into this awareness to the point where you don't really need the man to be the protector. You already have protection around you. And if you find that there are sources now out there where if you need to get some work done around the house, you can find some way of doing it, or do it yourself. What I want you to do is to look within, even as I have done, and realize who I am. You see, when you know who you are, everything changes. It's knowing who you are, from not just intellectually, but here in your heart. Because it's a connection to the divine source of energy within you. When you realize who you are, obviously the first reaction is to become independent, which is fine. That's where you need to be. But after a while, when you begin to learn to connect and love yourself, and pull that love up within yourself, and you're filled up with that love and that peace and the joy, there becomes an overflow. And you have to give it away. Every one of you have gifts, strengths, and talents, and the purpose of having them is to give them away. And the only way to do that is through a relationship. You say, well, I don't want a relationship. Okay, that's your choice. That is your choice. But I can tell you, I have done the most spiritual growth when I was in a relationship with people. And there are different levels of friendships and relationships. You have your neighbors, your acquaintances, the people you work with, the people you have gone to school with, the people that you're in your family or relatives, the people who you gather together spiritually with. And you're going to have different relationships with those individuals. But everybody who comes into my life has a purpose in my perspective. And I get to decide how I want to interpret that. In other words, sometimes people come into my life and they seem to bring frustration to me, but then I have to look within myself and I say, okay, why am I feeling frustrated about that person? Are they is their intention to hurt me or to cause me harm? Or is it just something I'm being agitated with? So I'm learning to grow. I'm learning to realize who I am through every relationship. And in partnerships, or what we call partnerships, let's define that a little bit, because I've been married 3 times, and I've had a couple of other women I've been in long relationships with, and intimately, and first by friendship and then through intimately. And I can tell you that those relationships were meant to be. My philosophy, my belief system is that before I came into physical form, I made an agreement with those women that I would have that relationship for the sole purpose of learning to grow and to help one another. Now, I just used the word help. Do you need someone to help you? Well, there are times when I need help, yes. But my first source of the help is Spirit, the divine within me. And that's what I'm encouraging you to do. We have a tendency to look out here and feel like other people are going to fulfill our need. And it's understandable that that's what the matrix system is designed to do, to make us feel that we're inadequate, that we don't have what we need, and we need to look for it out here. Once again, I'm encouraging you to look within, because you don't realize the power of what you have within. So when you begin to learn to connect, you do that through meditation, opening yourself up and surrendering to the source of all things, we'll call it God. It will speak to you that your higher self, your higher being that has brought you into this world, it will speak to you. But you have to learn to connect, you have to learn to listen, you have to get to know that voice. Because we have these intellectual minds that always have all this chatter, and if you're living in your mind, you're never going to be able to connect deeply within your heart. So relationships are very important. See, we're all connected. Whether we realize it or know it or not, we're still all connected. And what's happening is there is a shift in the energies. We basically have lived in a male-dominated world, and women have had to be submissive. So what's happening is the women are coming into their own power. And when you come into that power, I understand. You're saying, look, hey, I'm independent. I don't need you. I don't need a man anymore. I can do this without. And I understand that. But I'm going to tell you, if you want to continue to grow, don't stop there. Find relationships that you can be in at whatever level, so that you can continue to grow, because it's in those close relationships that we find our true selves, that we reflect one another, we mirror each other, and we learn an awful lot about ourselves. I learned an awful lot in my last relationship about myself, about how I was still holding on to a lot of pride. And she was able to love me despite the fact that I wielded my pride over her, until the one day that I began to see it and all come crumbling down. So I value what I have in the relationships and the friendships I have. Now, you have to learn how to trust other people to do this. And throughout our past relationships, we go, I don't know if I can trust anybody. I don't even know if I can trust myself. If I failed the last relationship, how can I trust myself to have another one? Well, the value of trust doesn't come within yourself. It comes into your higher self. It comes from Spirit. You see, Spirit is choreographing everything to your favor if you open your eyes and open your mind and heart and see it that way. I know I have. So don't stop when you find your power with your independence. When you find that you are really the source, you are the source of everything you need. Don't stop there. Realize that you are connected. See the divine within everyone. I treat everybody the same. Even if I know you or don't know you, I still treat you as a divine spirit being living in human form. And therefore I can connect with you. Now, I choose wisely on the relationships, the deep relationships I get into. I mean, let's talk a little bit about sex, about making love with someone. You understand that in that moment when you're having sex with another person, you are exchanging energies, and the energy is to open you up and to blossom. This is what, even the people who are totally unaware of any of this, why do you think they're screaming, "Oh God, oh God," when they're having sex? Because it's an ultimate vibration of the celebration of life. But when you know who you are, and when you're in this awakening state and you start connecting to Spirit, you can use that celebration, that intimate moment of making love, as a boost. There's a release of energy in that moment that can be used to create and to manifest and to fulfill what it is you want. The mind is a very powerful tool, and when you learn that your thoughts can create form, even when you're having sex. Now, I'm not talking about a distorted point of view or a using of one another. I'm not talking sex is not about using one another. It's not about the fact, I was taught when I was young, as a young man, when I first got married, that we had sex because when either partner wanted to have sex, we had to commit ourselves to that and give in, even if we didn't feel like it. I'm not encouraging you to do that. What I'm encouraging you is to find a high level of awareness of who you are and living at a higher vibration that you are willing to be intimate with anyone or your partner when you have that opportunity, because it's a celebration of life. Now, I want to address something here that maybe might help you just a little bit on through this, and that is the idea of expectations versus intentions. We have in our mind the concept of what we want, or we feel like we need, and we create an expectation. Now, the difference between an expectation and an intention is the fact that in the expectation, you are invested in the outcome. So if you don't get what you need, you feel like you're a failure. Why do we do that to ourselves? Why do we make commitments to things that we know we can't fulfill? The only thing you can really do is have an intention in your heart. And in the intention, you don't have an investment in the outcome. It's just a place of consciousness, a place of awareness that you hold in your heart. And whether or not it happens or not, it doesn't make any difference. It just is. And therefore you have no one to blame. You can't blame yourself. You can't blame the situation. You can't blame another person. You just hold the intention, and you hold it there until eventually you get what you want. Now, sometimes it takes a little bit of an alignment to the universe. It means we have to sometimes adjust and change our intentions to get a better understanding as to what we really want. And when we do this in our relationships, we're going to find far more joy, far more love and peace in our relationships, and a fulfillment. So I'm encouraging you to have relationships. If you want to be independent, that's fine. But I'm going to tell you, if you really, really, really want to grow spiritually, and you really want to know who you are, then do so. And I went through a period here of a couple of years now. I've not been in a close relationship with a woman, and I first found a lot of freedom in that, and I found a lot of joy in that. But after about a year, I began to sense this feeling of loneliness, and I didn't know what to do at that point, because I said to myself, why am I feeling this? And Spirit said, transform that loneliness into solitude. So I have, over the last few years, actually begun to experience solitude, in the sense of the fact that it was time for me, time to live alone. I have friends. I spend time. I put myself out there with people. But I'm living alone has been my solitude, and I've been able to accomplish an awful lot through this. But I'm looking for another relationship, because I know that not only am I going to grow, but I'm going to help them grow, and it will be an agreement that we've made before we came here. Well, I hope that some of this stuff has helped you out. I'm going to encourage you to watch another video I made a couple of years ago. It was called Old Souls Finding Relationships. Old Souls Finding Relationships. I've got almost 3,000 views on this video, and it's on YouTube, so you might want to go look for it, and maybe you'll get something more out of that. So, do you need a partner? No. But you might be better off to have one. Keep it in balance. Learn to love yourself first, and now as an overflow, you share in your relationships. I hope this has been a blessing to you. Thank you. God bless.